Good Boy is the name of the movie we're going to be watching today. I have no idea why I thought that would be a good idea to say good boy in a weird way at the start of my video, but I did, and here we are. Sorry. Hello, my name is Pavel. Welcome back to my channel. Throughout my time on YouTube, I have watched a few weird movies. We're talking a Serbian film, Human Centipede 2, and this week I feel like it's going to be no exception. Whenever I saw this poster, you know I had to watch this movie, and while I haven't watched it, I'm going to be watching it. It is called Good Boy, and it looks like it's about a man dressed up as a dog, killing people, and if you know anything about me, this is my type of movie, as weird as that sounds. And I'm not trying to kink shame or anything like that, but if you give me a movie about a man dressing as a dog, puppy play or whatever, killing people or being creepy or sinister or whatever, you know I'm going to be watching it, and I am so excited. It is a foreign Norwegian horror movie, I believe. It is like 75 minutes long, and everything points to me liking this, and I am very, very excited. I saw this on Letterboxd, and I have no idea what this movie is about, but I am, as I said, again, excited. It has some good potential. I feel like this is a very creative, original way to tell a story, and I have my hopes up high, and my predictions are, well, as I said, probably creepy. So, saying that, I'm gonna go watch Good Boy and see if it's actually good or not. Boy. Or something. I don't know. I'm gonna go watch this movie. Bye-bye.
Which bumbo clot dog I am? Cause this morning I wake up good enough. Give me a good blood clot dog. What kind of little bumbo clot dog this I'ma give? In can't have bark louder blood clot. In can't defend me.
Okay, hello. I have just watched Good-ish Boy, and that was, as I just basically said, it was good. I have a lot of things to say about this movie, but before I talk about the specifics of this movie, let me read you the synopsis of Good Boy. Sigrid hits it off with Christian, a millionaire who she meets on a dating app, but learns that he lives with a man who acts like a dog. Trying to be open-minded, she continues their relationship with him. And there's one more line to that review, but I'm not going to read it to you because I feel like it's actually going to give it away. One of the good things about this movie is that I feel like you need to go into this movie knowing absolutely nothing. So maybe if you are somewhat even interested in this movie, go watch it, because there are going to be some spoilers, but I'm going to tell you whenever I'm going to spoil the movie. But again, as I said, it's one of these movies that I feel like you need to kind of figure out as you're watching it, rather than read the synopsis or watch a trailer, because I feel like these things give way too much away. So, as I said, this is a Norwegian horror movie, a horror-ish drama horror, maybe. I don't even know if you could even call it a horror movie. It's a Norwegian movie, and I have watched a lot of Norwegian movies recently, if you've been watching my recent videos. So I was excited. I love foreign horror, blah, 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 blah. I love foreign horror movies. I seem to always have a good time with them, so I was really, really excited. And when I saw the first scene of the movie that I'm going to put on the screen for you right now, I was locked in. I was like, oof. Again, I'm not trying to kink shame or any of that sort of stuff, but I was excited. I was like, this is such an original concept. A bit of puppy play with horror, and you're like, everything is just giving you creepy vibes. You're trying to understand the dynamic. You don't really know what's happening. Is there like a power complex thing, or just what is actually happening? And as you progress throughout the movie, you figure out some things, but at the same time there's some things that don't make sense that I'm going to get to a little bit later on. So the first thing I want to say is the guy, let me give you some names. Actually, I feel like I should give you some names. So we have three main characters. We have Sebastian, who is our main millionaire. Then we have Sigrid, who is the love interest. She is Christian's new lover that he meets on a dating app through Tinder. And then we have Frank, aka the dog. So those are our three characters that we basically need to know. Everybody else in this movie is very minor, like we just get a phone call from a mother, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Those are our three characters. So the first thing I want to say is it seems so uncomfortable. Like, respect to those who interact, I suppose, with puppy play, because being like in that dog costume and walking around and pretending to be a dog all day, and even like sitting there and sleeping like that, living in a cage at times, eating dog food, respect, because holy crap, that is just a commitment to the play, to the bit. It's not really a bit, it's commitment, and I actually do respect it. But at the same time, I was watching this at the start for the first half of this movie, and I was like, why don't you just get a real dog? Like, this guy Sebastian just seems he just seems bored. He seems like he has nothing to do. Maybe that's why he has a man dressed up as a dog. Who knows? Well, I do, but I'm going to tell you a bit later on. So, as I was saying, this is an unsettling concept. And the storyline, I will briefly explain it to you, is, so we have Sebastian. He has his dog, Frank, and he's just kind of like lonely, as I just said. And he's scrolling through Tinder, and he finds Sigrid. Am I saying that name correctly? Yes, he finds Sigrid, and he's like, oh, she's cute. I'm going to go on a date with her. So they go on a date, they meet up, blah, blah, blah. Their dynamic is very weird. She seems very chilled back, confused in life, not very rich, unlike him, who is at this date with a suit on, and he looks proper, and, you know, he feels like he is less... It looks like he has his life figured out. He's a perfect looking man, and she's just like the typical student. So anyway, long story short, they go back to his house, blah, blah, blah. She meets Frank, and she's like, I am not interested. No, this is very weird. And he's like, no, let me explain. She's like, no. So she goes home to her roommate, and her roommate is like, wait, did you say that Christian, this guy Christian, you went on a date with him? Did you know that he had parents who are now dead, who were billionaires? Did you know that you just went on a date with a billionaire? And Sigrid is like, okay, I guess I can rethink this. And so she goes back to him. They start developing their relationship. And as you're watching this, you're like, hey, this kind of seems like this is a little bit too good to be true. So anyway, their relationship is building. She's kind of like furthering herself away from her friends. So it's basically just this trio. So as you're watching all of this, you notice that Frank is getting a little bit jealous. He's looking at Sigrid and Christian's relationship, peeping through doors, and just acting a little bit weird. So you have every single expectation that something weird is going to happen. It's kind of like we're just waiting for Frank to attack Sigrid, because you're just getting these weird, like, sinister vibes. You feel like something just evil is going to happen. You know it's not going to be leading somewhere polite, because after watching the trailer, you're just waiting for an attack from Frank, and the suspense just keeps building, and the viewer just becomes more unsure as to what is actually going to happen. So then we see Christian, who's like, hey, how about the three of us go to a cabin far away in the middle of nowhere? Lots of red flags, and she's like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds absolutely perfect. And at the same time, it just makes sense why she says yes straight away, and I will get to that a little bit later on in this video. So they go to the cabin, and things start to get a little bit weird, and all I'm going to say is I'm going to play a clip for you now in a second. And once this clip hits, it's going to be spoiler territory. So if you want no spoilers for this movie, then do not watch after this. This is your warning. Spoilers. So we see this scene.
Vi må faktisk komme oss vekk herfra. Du er nødt til å hjelpe meg. Han er helt psyko.
And up until this point, we are so curious, but now things slowly start to make sense. We see Frank, and we see the person who is in Frank's costume, and we are so confused, because is Frank actually being held captive by Christian, or is he lying to Sigrid? We don't really know. And I really enjoyed the fact that we had no idea what was going on. We don't really know who to believe, and I love movies like this, because as I was watching this, I was like, I do not know who to believe. Do I believe Frank? Because he could be lying. Frank has been with Christian for such a long time. Surely if something was really wrong, he could have like killed him or escaped or something along those lines. So as this movie progresses, I was so unsure, and I really love, as I said, like picking out all the little details, trying to figure out who's lying, who's telling the truth, and seeing Sigrid do the exact same thing. It's suspenseful, there's a lot of panic, and there's a lot of red flags, so you're not really sure what to believe, and I really love that. And I was so intrigued until this point, until we see Christian call Sigrid out and tell her that he knows everything, and that he has like this recording device placed on Frank. So we see him put Frank into a cage, and we see Christian tell Sigrid that he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on, and he's not stupid apparently. And then this is where the movie just absolutely falls apart in every single way, because all the plot holes are apparent. Everything that was making sense does not make sense at all. So the first thing that I notice is that we see Frank attack Christian, which is perfectly fine. You know, it's revenge time. You know, if you've been locked up as a dog for years or for however long, you would want to escape, right? Christian mentions earlier that he's had Frank since he's been a kid, so obviously you would want to escape. So we see Frank attack Christian, and Sigrid just gets a key and runs away, and Christian just does nothing about it. He literally watches her escape. Very weird. And as she's escaping, Sigrid is just in the woods, and she steps out 2 steps out of the door, and she starts screaming for help. Who the fuck is going to help you when you're whatever. So that's one thing that does not make sense at all, because one, why would Frank take, like, that feels like the worst opportunity after being with somebody for so many years. Feels like the worst opportunity to actually attack somebody. Number two, Sigrid goes back to Frank because Frank is now being tortured, and Sigrid is like, yeah, I'm gonna go back. I have been abused and blah 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 blah, but I'm just gonna go back because that makes sense. So I don't really understand why Frank couldn't have killed him ages ago. Why Sigrid had to be quite silly in the way she did things. Why did she even go to rescue Frank? That didn't really have this relationship until maybe at the end, where it was like shown that he was actually trustworthy and she might have felt bad. But also maybe, okay, I'm gonna give this movie the benefit of doubt and say, you know, maybe she was like hypnotized / manipulated, because this movie could be a big metaphor for like domestic abuse or domestic violence, and it's a big metaphor, and whenever you read it through that lens, it's a lot more interesting, I suppose. But this movie does not communicate that to you at all. But everything that happens after Christian puts Frank into a cage and poisons Sigurd, blah blah blah, it just falls apart, and there's so like nothing just really makes sense. And for me at the same time, it feels extremely unbelievable that this extremely rich dude is like this loner guy, and he struggles to make friends because, you know, he's different, he just doesn't belong. I forgot to say that I absolutely love that this movie subverts your expectations, because we have like the character of Frank. We just think that he's going to be the villain, we just feel like he's going to attack, kill, but this movie just subverts those expectations, and it's not what it seems to be, and it does it so effectively, and I really love that. And one more point, because I completely forgot to add it, Christian really buys into this. He treats it like a game, because there's so many times wherever we see Christian just approach Sigurd and have fun with, like, he calls her in because he knows that she's anxious. He calls her into the bedroom and he shouts at her, and he's like, if you do this bed wrong again, I'm gonna blah 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 blah. But then at the end he starts laughing. He's like, ha ha ha, I'm just joking darling, and he just has fun with it. He has fun with the psychological torture that he puts people through, and that's very evident whenever you kind of think about the movie after, and I've just kind of noticed it whilst editing the video. He really has fun, and he tries to portray himself a certain way, especially whenever he mentions things like calorie counting. They're like tiny little hints that he is very controlling and very specific. But then he charms, which kind of like, I suppose whenever you have somebody that's rich, you don't really expect them to be this crazy, and I feel like everything plays in his favor. But whenever you look at the subtle things he does, it's very interesting to shape the type of character that he is, and I feel like I've only noticed that after thinking about the movie and seeing clips whilst I'm editing. So I feel like Christian as a character is actually very interesting, and there's a lot of like subtle details that I picked up on after, which I really liked, and I just completely forgot to say that in the video. And whilst watching this, I was like, what if Frank is lying to Sigurd? What if he's being like, hey, he's basically holding me hostage, I'm being held as this dog, blah blah blah, and we need to go kill him? And what if it was this big plot by Frank? That would have been a lot more interesting. You just kind of want more twists, you want more explanation. Like, why is Christian doing this? We have no explanation for that, no proper explanation. Is it because he's bored and he's just trying to see where life is going to be taking him, as he says earlier on in the movie? I don't really understand. Why is he even doing this? It's definitely a weird concept, and I think I'm disappointed because I wanted so much more from it, because it is an original concept. So at the end of the movie, we see Christian basically mate Frank and Sigurd, because he's captured both of them now fully, and he makes them mate and create a new puppy. And if the movie had like that solid ending, which I did enjoy, and we had the first 40 minutes of build up, I would be, oh my gosh. But everything in that like 20-minute gap where I told you where everything kind of unfolds, it's so stupid, and it's so disappointing because it's such an original plot, it's such an original concept. I feel like the movie Speak No Evil was fairly similar to this, except it upheld the suspense and left you wondering until the very end. Unlike this, where there was great suspense which felt extremely flat when everything was revealed, everything here felt like it was just shoved in an attempt to tie loose ends. And I really love when we have a narrator that is just not reliable, because throughout this entire movie, I'm not gonna lie, I was bought into Christian, I was bought into his charm, and I really loved it. So whenever everything opened up and didn't really make sense, and I was just disappointed. And this director does not have any other movies, so I am excited to see what else he does in the future, because this is a strong plot, this is a strong concept. I was just a bit disappointed. And I think I was disappointed because I really wanted it to work, I guess. And it was 70 minutes, 75 minutes or something along those lines, like ticking every box. And I loved how the pacing worked. I was like, where is this gonna go? And it just went down there. Yeah. I think that's everything I have to say about, what even is this movie called? Good Boy. That's everything I have to say about Good Boy. Go watch it. I also just noticed here on Google that it said that this is a horror comedy. I wouldn't say it's a comedy. It's definitely not a comedy. If you want a comedy, do not watch this. Yeah, that's everything I have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.